our pal Jake Fisher, the market for him, pretty robust. A lot of people are interested in him. He considered to be perhaps the most likely player to be traded at the trade deadline. However, it's not the same situation as Dennis Schroeder and Dorian Finney-Smith because the Nets can convincingly say, well, no, we're fine with keeping him. We don't have to trade him. He's under contract for 2 more years after this year. Pretty reasonable salary, shooting the hell out of the ball. Right now, he's out due to an ankle injury, but should be back any day now. The asking price is high, and they can drive a high asking price for Cam Johnson as long as the demand is high and the Nets are continuing to lose games. As long as they're losing games and he's not accidentally making them win games, they don't have that kind of push factor to get him off their roster. So on the Cam Johnson front, I think this is going to go all the way up until that February 6th trade deadline, unless the team really steps up with a serious offer. And the Nets are playing this perfectly. They're going to play teams off of each other. They're going to try to get a bidding war going. And the word is that now, and we've talked about this, that some teams might say, well, we don't want to get involved in a bidding war. OKC might actually be dropping out of the Cam Johnson chase because they don't want to mess with the chemistry of their team, and they'd have to give up a lot to go get Cam.
Oof. I understand that. You got a good thing going. Don't really need to change much with it. I also think if OKC just absolutely needs to pull off a trade, I think a third big, well, I don't want to say third because they do have
Jalen. Be like a fourth
big would be nice, but that's about it. They don't really, I mean, their team's proven to work, at least in the regular season so far. And I think they have made some great additions, adding the vets and Hartenstein and Caruso. And I think they're primed to take the next step. They don't have to make that trade. Yeah. I just would like to see them make it because if they wanted to, they could, and they'd be the best team asset wise to deal with if you're the Nets as well, because they just have so many things they could give you other teams couldn't potentially. They could overpay a little bit and not feel the sting of it. But there is something to it. Like if it's not broke, don't fix it. So it makes sense.
Yeah, I do think that OKC, while they've got a bunch of future draft capital, one of the things we may look to see them do, if they don't feel like they're getting the right value for their draft capital. I mean, look, if you're a team dealing with OKC and you think a guy's worth, let's call it 2 firsts, you're going to ask for 3.
Yeah.
Why? Because we know you've got them. Yep. Like Sam Presti has in his office, he's got a closet and it is overflowing. Like he has to shove everything in there, like my closet when I was a kid. And I was shoving all my toys and things in there. And then you just kind of like have to put your shoulder into it to get the door to shut. That's Sam Presti trying to close his closet full of draft picks at this point. He's got so many draft picks. He's overflowing with them. And teams know that. So they're going to ask for a lot of them. I think what we may see the Thunder do is if they're not getting the value that they want, they're going to start taking those picks and turning them into stuff even further down the road. They're going to take some first-round draft capital and turn it into a future first-round pick or something like that. We'll start to see moves of that nature because they can't use all the picks that they've got right now.
Could you imagine they're drafting guy like what is it, like 5 guys this year, whatever it is?
They'd have to like cut guys just to use all their draft picks.
That's crazy. Yeah, they're going to have to do that just so those assets don't go to waste unless they're going to wind up using them off, which is the smart thing to do. And I have absolute faith that Presti will put them in the position to do whatever they need to do.
Yeah. So, and the Cavs, their interest in Cam Johnson is considered to be preliminary. Another team that, frankly, doesn't have to do anything. And OKC doesn't have to do anything drastic either. You got to be careful you don't try to fix what's not broken. That's the important thing here for them.
The Cavs, I think, also could probably, again, just use another big. Like, I like that they've got their 2 in the front, but they're kind of thin after that. They go to Mobley at the 5. They don't really have much else there. Like, they could probably use another serviceable one. But other than that, they don't really need much. So,
yeah, agreed. One other thing, just to, kind of tie a bow on all the Cam Johnson stuff here. I had a comment that the Kings apparently have the best offer right now with a first and expirings. I don't know, like right now the Nets want 2 firsts, but we've also seen the Nets in their 2 previous trades. They wanted a first for Schroeder. They very quickly said, okay, we'll take seconds. They wanted a first for Dorian Finney-Smith. They very quickly said, okay, we'll take seconds. They have a history of bringing down their asking price. So I do think that teams are also going to have that expectation now that the Nets will do the same thing here, that they may be asking for 2 firsts for Cam Johnson, but would they actually settle for 1 and maybe a second or something like that? So that'll be interesting to watch. But the Kings, I think, are a very motivated buyer. And so if anybody's going to, I don't know if overpay is the right word, but if anybody is going to get close to that asking price for the Nets, Sacramento does seem to be a team that would be primed to do something like that.
Yeah, I mean, if they could pull it off and feel good about it, they should. If I'm excuse me, not Detroit, Brooklyn, I'm not making this move if I could hold him until the literal deadline. I'm gonna do that and push it up against the wall and say, all right, we're approaching the literal time. Like, any last calls? Okay, well, this is what we're doing. And again, they don't have to make a trade if they don't want to, but that's what I would be doing. And if that's Sacramento at that point, sure, go for it. I a first and expirings isn't all that inspiring for me personally.
Yeah.
Maybe a first and some seconds as well. Maybe that's the compromise. But regardless, I think Sacramento should be in on him. I think he'd fit perfectly. But again, like we've said 1,000 times, he'd fit anywhere. So
yeah, he really could. He really could fit anywhere. All right. Let's just go into the chat for the remainder of this show, because those were my primary news topics we wanted to get into. And I know the chat already has some stuff going on here that they want us to talk about. I know Colin Sexton, his name's been going around there. I know Evan Sidery had something about contenders are interested in Sexton. I think if the Jazz are going to make a trade, it's probably Colin Sexton that winds up getting moved. I don't see Jordan. I think they waited a year too long on Jordan Clarkson, maybe 2 years too long to move Jordan Clarkson. John Collins is another interesting one, but I think Colin Sexton would make a lot of sense for the Jazz to move on from, to get future assets. And he could be a guy who could fit as a six-man scorer a lot of places.
On the Jordan Clarkson piece, do you think he would be better elsewhere? Is it like similarly to, like, Kuzma, these guys both are shooting abysmal. Do you think they're just chucking because of the location, or do you think they'd be better elsewhere?
Yeah, I do think it's possible that the percentages improve for Jordan Clarkson if he's somewhere else, right? The defense isn't going to be able to key on him quite as much. But we also have to remember it doesn't feel like he is, but somehow, some way, he's 32 years old. So, and he's under contract next season as well for $14.2 million. So I don't know that the numbers improve a ton. I'm more confident in Colin Sexton being a six-man scorer for my team, more so than Jordan Clarkson at this point. And Clarkson a couple of years ago certainly could do that. But like I said, I think the Jazz actually held a little too long on Clarkson. And I think the market has been depressed on Kuzma too for the same reason. The numbers just hasn't been good. And we could say the same thing with Jerami Grant with the Blazers, who has not had a great season. So it's going to be a situation where the Jazz, the Blazers, the Wizards, maybe they have to take an offer that's a little bit less than what they want, or just hang on to the player for the time being and hope their numbers bounce back next year, because there's enough other options on the market that I think teams will look elsewhere first and only go to these types of guys, Clarkson, Kuzma, Jerami Grant, if some of the other guys are already off the board.
Yeah, that makes sense. Let's pivot from that and talk about everyone's favorite center, Nurkic. What do you think the Suns have to do with him? I saw a report, I think it was actually from Sidery as well, because like nowadays Sidery's got everything. And it was saying that Nurkic is like, they're so done with him that if they can't move him, he'd be their fourth string center, which is insane to me. So
I mean, I kind of buy it. Plumlee, Iguodala.
Yeah.
Now you've got Nick Richards. Like,
wow.
And not in that order, but Yusuf Nurkic, like they obviously he's not giving him $18 million worth of production. Suns fans can't stand the guy.
Nope.
I know YYC said buy out Nurk. I mean, that's you could waive and stretch him, and you could stretch him over the next 5 years because you double the number of years left on the contract plus one. So you could stretch him out over 5 years, but still, do you want to have Nurkic on your books for 5 years? Probably not. I don't know. I have a hard time imagining where he goes. Like, I think Nurkic is not as bad of a player as what he's shown in Phoenix this year. I think he could be better somewhere else. But again, it comes down to opportunity cost. Would you rather spend $18 million on Yusuf Nurkic or $20 million on Nikola Vucevic?
Not even close.
Right? Right? That's the problem. Who's taking Nurkic if you can go get Vucevic?
Yeah, no chance at all. And then again, there's another year at 19 next year. I don't know that he's as bad as he's shown, but he's been pretty brutal. It's just insane that like they're just so far out on him that he's going to be behind all the guys. Lost his starting spot at one point to Mason Plumlee as well. That's how far that they're willing to get away from him at this point, and that's a big salary number. That's your fourth highest paid player on your roster. That's brutal to kind of have to jettison a guy like that. So they're gonna have to figure something out with him. I think they'd have to attach an asset or something to him, but they just don't have those. So I don't know what they can do here.
Yeah, like if I'm the Suns, there's no way in hell I'm attaching a first to get Nurkic off my team. There's no way I'm doing that. Like, that's crazy, especially when we talk about it. It'd be a 2031 first. Now, could you attach seconds or something? Maybe, but even that, like, what are you getting in return? Like, I think it's the same, well, not the exact same situation, but it's similar problem to Clarkson, Jerami Grant, Kyle Kuzma right now, that there's better options out there for a team that's looking for the things that Nurkic would do in theory. And so it's a tricky situation. And he said he's going to be professional and all that, and he's not going to cause problems and everything. But I mean, if he is literally the fourth string center, is he going to be super happy with that? Probably not.
Yeah, that's brutal.
Probably not. All right. Do the Lakers have enough to trade for Gafford? Yeah, I mean, money-wise, they can certainly get there, but it would have to be. But do the Mavs want Gabe Vincent? I know they want perimeter defense, but is that what do the Mavs want Gabe? I'm assuming the answer is no. And if that's the case, and on top of that, if you're the Mavs and you're looking at the standings in the West right now, you probably want to give them to anybody but the Lakers, since the Lakers are a half a game ahead of them in the standings.
Yeah, absolutely. They're not giving it to him. Would you rather have him or Jonas? Because YouTube users saying that they'd rather have Jonas.
I would rather have Gafford.
Like,
what about you?
Like, I don't think it's particularly close. I would rather have Gafford.
Yeah,
I don't think it's close, actually.
And I like Jonas. I've been a fan of Jonas his entire career. I like him as a player. I at 32, I question his fit now with a lot of teams.
Jonas over Nurk. Okay, Jonas over Nurk.
Oh, Jonas over Nurk. Oh, yeah. Oh, yeah, I would take Jonas over Nurk for sure. 100%.
Easily. Yeah, I was going to say I like Jonas. He's one of my least favorite bigs on the market right now, just due to the limitations he has. But yeah, over Nurkic easily.
Yeah.
I think the Suns would do that if they could.
Oh, the Suns would do that in a heartbeat. If they could turn Nurkic into Jonas, I mean, yeah, they would. They would definitely do that. I mean, they tried to turn Nurkic into Nick Richards, and the Hornets were wise enough to not do that.
That's a weird, like, you'd have to get something else back in that. That doesn't even match up.
They wanted to turn him into Nick Richards and Cody Martin.
Martin is who it was. Oh, that would have been good for them.
Oh, that would have been great for the Suns, and that would have been abysmal for the Hornets. That would have been awful. But you look at Jonas, I mean, under $10 million this year, $10 million next year, and then totally non-guaranteed. So really, it's a 2-year contract. The third year is totally non-guaranteed. So, I mean, that I would much rather have Jonas than Nurkic, no question.
Yeah, better production at almost half the money. So
yeah. Let's go here. Andre Miller, who is a very underrated point guard. Valanciunas, 21 and 15 per 36. Come on, LA. The problem is he can't defend anybody. Yeah. I mean, he gets destroyed every time he has to switch on anybody else. So you're very limited in what you can do defensively with him. But I mean, hey, if you want somebody to get in there and be a bruiser and get double-digit boards and double-digit points each night, he can absolutely give you that. I don't think he's a 36-minute-a-night player anymore. Probably closer to 15 to 20, that range. But he can still be productive. You're a bit limited in your options if you're gonna use him.
Yeah, him getting 15 to 20 could probably be good for him anyway, so he's not maxing out